Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Dispatch Tea and Therapy. If you've been around for a little while, you know that part of what I talk about is my own exit from 911 and the 23 years that I spent there, plus the things that led to my exit. This is not to relitigate it, it's not to perform it, and it's not because I still need to process it. I finally have done all of that, the processing, that is. But I do think understanding what happened to me, because it happens to other people as well, might help somebody else recognize what's happening to them. So today, we're stepping back into the story. Again, like I said, not to process it, to understand it. Because what I went through wasn't just frustrating, it was an actual breakdown in how the process is supposed to work. In 911, there are systems in place for accountability. There are investigations, there are inquiries, there are expectations for supervision. And those systems are supposed to protect both the organization and the employee. This is what it looks like when they don't. Several months before I finally exited 911, I was placed under an inquiry for misuse of company time, which is a scary thing to hear because what they're implying with this inquiry is that I was at work and actively working on other things, not work-related things, which in my mind equates to theft of time, right? It's a moral thing, it's an ethical thing. So I was deeply concerned that this was a concern because it's not something I do. I was given 4 specific days that I was told I was being investigated on. And I was told that on those days, I had been out of the comm room, not doing my job, and that I needed to account for what I had done during those 4 days. That was brought about through a conversation with another supervisor who had mentioned I'd been doing QA, but I was still behind on QA. I was often behind on QA. I own that, okay? I can go into lots of reasons for that, but that's not the point here. Here's the first problem with the inquiry that I got. Where I work, at least, that is not how an inquiry is supposed to work. Supervisors are supposed to investigate the entire claim to make sure there's something there before you're even notified, right? That's how we do it. Because why stress somebody out for something if it's not factual, right? So you're supposed to do that before you notify anybody that you have an inquiry. You are not supposed to be investigating yourself. But somehow that's exactly what I ended up doing by having to give a write-up of those 4 days of everything that I did, where I was, the proof of and you know what, I did it. I went back, I documented everything. And what I discovered, what I found out was very clear. On all 4 of those days, I was working not only work-related things, but not out of the comm room. I was actually in the comm room for most of that time. So the core allegation was already not accurate. At that point, the inquiry should have been over. Instead, I went into the inquiry, I went into the fact-finding, or the resolution, I should say. And what I was told was, well, maybe the dates were wrong. Okay. But that's when everything should have stopped. Because if the dates are wrong, you don't have an inquiry. There's a pattern you'll see in unhealthy systems when the original claim doesn't hold, the focus shifts instead of stopping. But there was a second piece. They pulled 30 days of my history on computer activity. The implication being that I might have been doing something unrelated to work, like school. That was their real concern, that I was doing schoolwork. What they found were 2 days in a 30-day span where I had visited travel-related websites, not school. They were not excessive, and they were not, and this is important, on any of the 4 days that I was being investigated for. Okay, so in 30 days of history, they found 2 days where I did some travel website searching because I was getting ready to go on vacation. Again, this is not a bad thing. It's not a disallowed thing, and it certainly was not excessive, okay? So here I am getting ready to go into this resolution feeling confident because at this point, the original allegation doesn't hold, the dates didn't hold, the supporting evidence did not hold. So that's the fact finding, right? Instead of ending it, when I went in for that resolution with my direct supervisor, feeling confident, feeling sure that this was going to be unfounded, what they did instead, was they changed the focus. Suddenly now the inquiry was not misuse of company time, it was time management. The original charge was gone, the goalposts had moved, and when the goalposts move, it stops being about behavior and starts being about maintaining a conclusion. It should have been thrown out. There's literally nothing. They had nothing. I was literally told directly to my face from that supervisor that they weren't sure about the dates anymore, and they'd gone through all of this video surveillance. They didn't see anything they found because they didn't find anything, and then they said, so I just decided to give you an oral admonishment. So this oral admonishment for a bogus claim with no evidence that had been proven factually incorrect went through. In addition to this oral admonishment, I was removed from all of my committees, the thought being that I was clearly distracted at work from doing the core part of my work. So all the committees, the recognition committee, the public education committee, and even the CAD committee, although having spoken to plenty of people still at that system of 911 where I worked, and firefighters and police officers, I'm kind of glad I was taken off the CAD system because I've heard it's total shit. Nobody likes it, so I'm okay that my name's not on it. But still, at the time, it was pretty upsetting. All of these committees still made the job meaningful to me. They were things that kept me engaged. They were things I was really good at. And from the outside, because, we internalize that. We don't keep it. We don't tell call receivers and dispatchers what happened. So from the outside, it looked like I just stepped down, like I was burned out, like I chose to walk away from those roles. And multiple people came up to me and said that they were bummed that I did, but they understood I needed to for my mental health. But I didn't leave them. They were taken from me for bogus claims and bogus reasons. And still, like a good little soldier, I did the right thing, right? I fought the inquiry through my union, who was really kind of milk toast about it. They were very, very weak about the whole thing. So it was denied, as they always are on the first step, and I chose not to further pursue it. This is one of those places where I did make a mistake. I should have pushed that harder. I should have taken that to the director or the assistant director and said, this is bogus, it needs to go away. But I didn't, because I was still trying to maintain status quo, right? I was just trying to hang on. I was trying to maintain 2 more years. And I also didn't tell anybody. I didn't, outside of my supervisor peers, I didn't tell car receivers or dispatchers because we're supposed to keep that separate. We're supposed to just take the hits and not tell anybody. And I think that's ridiculous now too. Let's be honest about what happened. Let's be honest about what happened. It also went further than the committees. I was also, because of this oral admonishment, no longer eligible for things like the critical incident stress debrief team that came up later. Something I was ideally suited for, having already gone through the training, to become a certified peer support specialist. But let me be clear about what that means. The CISD team responds when something bad happens, when a call goes wrong, when someone on the floor is struggling. It is the role that exists specifically to support humans doing this work. Like I said, I was uniquely credentialed and good for that role, exactly the kind of support I could have done. But I couldn't go for that because of that oral admonishment. So they didn't just remove me from committees, they removed me from the work and advancement of other things I was very qualified to do. That is not discipline, that is something else. When systems start removing you from roles that reflect your strengths, especially over bogus, unfounded, unproven claims, that is identity erosion. And that's what was happening. And that's also when something became very clear to me. This was not about correcting behavior. This was about sustaining a narrative even when the evidence did not support it. Once you see that, once you understand that the process isn't functioning the way it's supposed to, you start asking a different question. Not just, was this fair, but what else is happening inside this system that I'm not seeing yet? Because what I learned next took this from a breakdown in process to something that felt like a violation. But we're going to talk about that in the next week's episode, where we talk about surveillance and the 911 state. But again, that's an episode for another time. This is the part I want you to take with you, because this isn't just about 911. If you're in a system where the process doesn't match the reality, pay attention to that, because that matters. Take care of yourself. and do what you need to protect yourself, right? Document. Utilize your union. If you don't have one, truly, I encourage you to create one. Make sure they're strong, make sure that they're responsive to you, and maybe be stronger than I was and fight back when these systems and the processes become unfair. There are tools available to people in 911. I did not take advantage of them then. I am taking advantage of them now. And I encourage you, if you're staying in that job, if you're staying in that system, change has to come by shining a light on the things that are not good, that are not working, that are in fact breaking people down. So I encourage everybody who's still there and staying there to be braver than I was, to be stronger than I was maybe, I don't know what it was, but to keep fighting for fair processes, right? In the meantime, I hope that you will be taking care of yourselves. I hope that you are finding a way to navigate 911 systems so that you are staying healthy. I hope that if you are enjoying these series that you will hit like, subscribe, and share on my YouTube channel. And if there's anything that you wanted to share, I hope you will. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.